Hey folks, this is Riker, and Blizzard just released a preview of upcoming Season 24 in Diablo 3. In this video, we're going to go through that blog post preview and give our thoughts. So this will be patch 271. The PTR testing begins on June 17th. It'll last 2 weeks. PTR is a testing server where people can go and try out the new stuff, report bugs, report feedback. There's almost always, if not always, some balance tweaks that happen between PTR and live. Take a look at the preliminary patch notes below and start theory crafting how you'll make the most of the ethereals and new balance changes. The ethereals. Now, ethereals in Diablo 2, we had ethereal items. Ethereal items were, in design concept, temporary items. They could never be repaired, so when they broke down to nothing, they were gone forever. That was the design philosophy of them. As a consequence, they were more powerful than regular items, so they were intended to be a temporary, but on a longer scale, lived power boost. So let's find out what D3 ethereals are going to be. So going down here to patch notes and seasons. Alright, developers note, Diablo 2 left us with fond memories when it released more than 20 years ago. Damn straight. And with Diablo 2 Resurrected coming soon, they misplaced the TM. The TM should be after soon. Or that's a hint that it's sooner than Blizzard soon. We'd like to introduce a feature to honor that legacy. For this seasonal theme, our inspiration took shape by reimagining how ethereal items could manifest in Diablo 3. Okay. In Season 24, ethereals are rare, powerful, and fleeting items, with 21 iconic weapons from Diablo 2 making a return. Wait a minute. Okay. Rare? Yes. Powerful? Yes. Fleeting? Alright, so it sounds like it's going to be the same thing where they break down and you can't repair them. With 21 iconic weapons from Diablo 2 making a return. What does this mean? Alright, new season theme. Season 24 introduces ethereals, a new weapon type, so it's specifically weapons, that players will be able to acquire and hunt for in their upcoming seasonal journey. Ethereals will roll a powerful set of affixes, a random class weapon legendary power, and a random class passive power. Ethereals will have unique icons, names, item types, and sounds originally found in Diablo 2. For additional details on ethereals, check out the list below. They're pulling the sound files from Diablo 2. Are they just taking some Diablo 2 unique items? 21 iconic weapons. Is there going to be the lightsaber? Oh, there better be the lightsaber. Okay, so random class weapon legendary power and a random class passive power. So it's a Hellfire amulet rolled into a weapon with higher stats, presumably, than other item types. So it's a power boost season for sure. The extra class passive, it's a nice little buff. It's not enormous. We already get to pick our 4 best. Now we're getting our 5th best class passive. There's a reason that Hellfire amulets aren't used anymore. And then class weapon legendary power. Yeah, pretty much every build requires a weapon that uses a class weapon legendary power. So you'll want to find, if it's random, the one that corresponds to the build that you want to run. Or you can build around, I guess, if you find the ethereal that you want. But let's keep going. Ethereals are account bound and can only be dropped by monsters, chests, and destructibles, but do not require your character to be level 70 to drop. Ethereals cannot be acquired through Kanai's Cube or from Kadala. The item hunt returns, folks. Ethereal rarity drop rate is set between Ancient and Primal. Well, that doesn't tell us much. Anytime a legendary or set item drops, there's a 10%, 1 in 10 chance it is Ancient, and 1 in about 400 that it's Primal. So that's a big range. Does it mean it's 20%? 1 in 20? 1 in 200? We'll find out, I guess, through testing. But that's good. Okay, so more rare than Ancients, not as rare as Primals. If they were as rare as Primals, this would be inaccessible to the average player. Putting it somewhere in between, it's in that nice sweet spot where you're not going to burn out on, you're not going to finish gearing in, 2 weeks to be generous. Let's keep going. There are 3 unique ethereals per class. 3 unique ethereals per class. Each ethereal has fixed affixes and rolls 1 random legendary weapon power and 1 random class passive skill. So fixed affixes. Hopefully those will be the correct affixes that we want. Well, ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter if the rolls are high enough. Like, let's say you really need a cooldown reduction. I guess you can get cooldown on another piece of gear, and you'd hope that the higher affix is enough to justify that. Let's keep going. Only one ethereal can be equipped at a time. These are like D4 mythics that aren't going to exist anymore. Only one ethereal can be equipped at a time. Okay. In early Diablo 4 design, there was an item type called mythic. You could only have one. It was the best kind of item, and it had multiple legendary properties on it, basically. Okay. Ethereals ignore item durability loss. Well, that's the opposite of what ethereals do in D2. Okay. But they're fleeting. So they're not going to transfer to non-season. Okay. You'll have them for the season. Okay. Legendary powers and class passive skills rolled on ethereals do not stack with the same power equipped through Kanai's cube, items, or skills. This is fair. This is already the case. You can't have an item equipped and have that same item cubed and double dip on the benefit. That's normal. Ethereals cannot be enchanted. Whoa. Okay. Well, if they have fixed affixes, I guess you don't need to enchant them. Okay. Transmogrified. Oh, interesting. Dyed. Well, you can never dye items. Sorry, you can never dye weapons. Reforged or traded. So D3 already has very little trade. It's really just if you're in a party with someone while an item drops, you have, what, 60 minutes or 2 hours to trade it to them? These can never be traded. Okay, interesting. Ethereals can be augmented. Makes sense. Collecting all 21 ethereals, because it's 3 per class, during Season 24 will reward players with the Feat of Strength, Ethereal Recollection. Players who accomplish this will have all Ethereal Transmogrify options available for future seasonal and non-seasonal play. Whoa. Okay, so they each are getting unique 3D art. 21 new pieces of 3D artwork are being added this season. I gotta see what these things look like. There better be a lightsaber. But collecting all 21, man. If we have smart loot, that's basically gonna require that you need to play on every class for the season. I mean, it's either it is smart loot, in which case there's only a small chance that you'll get an off-class ethereal, or it's not smart loot, meaning if you do get an ethereal, it is most likely to not be for your class. 1 in 7 chance that it's for your class. I think I would rather they be smart loot. When you get an ethereal, I'd want it to be like, oh my god, I got my first ethereal, and not, I got my first, then it's terrible. But man, this is gonna be tough. Farming on every class. You can rebirth, what, 1, 2 max characters per season? So we'll have to actually delete and make new characters. Ethereals only drop in seasonal play and will not transfer to your non-seasonal character when the season ends. That's fair. Okay, so that's why they're ethereal, yeah. You're gonna add these like super powerful items just for 1 season. Then in subsequent seasons, a new player comes, it's like, hey, where'd you get that item? Oh, too bad, sucker, you can't get it. I know it sucks to like farm up something and then you're not gonna have it anymore, but it would fundamentally break the game. However, if ethereals are a great success, maybe Blizzard could be persuaded to keep it in the game, i.e. to keep the mechanic in the game. Alright, season rewards, 2 unique new rewards. A portrait frame and a pet will be granted to players who complete the Season 24 Guardian journey. Onto some balance changes. Monk, Mystic Ally, Fire Ally, now splits into 2 splits instead of 5. Okay. But now all Fire Allies can split. Okay, so Mystic Ally, Fire Ally, currently. The Fire Ally rune, when you pop the active, your Fire Ally splits into 5, and then they all explode. Now, splits into only 2, but now all Fire Allies can split. Okay, I'm wondering if maybe this refers to there are items that can give you doubles of allies, but maybe only your first ally would split into 5. Now, if you somehow are able to acquire multiple fire allies by default, they will all split. Damage radius slightly increased, and damage increased from 480 to... Wow, that is a quadrupling of the damage. Interesting. Well, hold on. The damage is quadrupled, but we're getting far fewer allies, so this actually probably evens out. So it used to be 5 allies popping for 480, which added up to 2,400% damage. Now it's 1920 times 2. Okay, so this is very roughly a doubling of damage. A little bit less than doubling of damage. So that's the takeaway on Fire Ally. This is a buff of about double damage. Okay. Mystic Ally, Earth Ally, damage increased from 3,800 to 4,500 weapon damage. Yeah, so that's 12 times more damage, but that's fair. I mean, Mystic Allies weren't a big damage skill. Alright, on to Wizard. Mirror Image. Mirror Image icon now displays a counter to display how many mirror images are active. Quality of life, very good. Item changes. Ina's mantra, of course, because it's the ally set. Gain the base effect of all 4 mantras at all times. Alright, that we already had. But now you gain 5% damage reduction for each Mystic Ally you have out. That's new. That's some new defense to this build. That's a huge amount of damage reduction. So you're gonna have 5 allies, plus Crudus Boots will double that to 10. 10 times 5%, that's 50% damage reduction right there. Nice. Huge amount of survivability added to this build. We just doubled our toughness. Alright, then the 6-piece bonus, gain the passive abilities of the 5 ruined Mystic Allies at all times. Attacking enemies creates your chosen Mystic Ally that lasts 15 seconds, up to 10 Mystic Allies. Excuse me? The damage of your Mystic Allies is increased by 950 for each Mystic Ally you have out. So the damage increase is the same. What's new is attacking enemies creates your chosen Mystic Ally, so the rune that you select matters, that lasts 15 seconds, up to 10 Mystic Allies. Now that's not 10 total, right? Because we will have 10 to begin with. That's 10 in addition to the 10 that we already have. So 20? No, that can't be possible, because combine that with the damage reduction, that would be 100% damage reduction. Oh, and you know what? I just realized this did change. It's the damage of your Mystic Allies is the only thing buffed now. This is a complete Inna rework. It used to be that your damage is buffed by the number of Mystic Allies you have out. This allowed Inna to be a set rather, that can work with a number of different builds. This is now a pure Mystic Allies dealing the damage build. There used to be, that was a viable build for Inna, right? The Mystic Ally build where they were doing the damage, it was years ago a very good Inna build. It faded into obscurity, it got left behind. This is bringing it back. This is now a Mystic Ally dealing the damage build. Alright, we'll have to see how this operates exactly. Maybe 10 is the max then. Because then we get to the Crudus Boots. Mystic Ally summons 2 Mystic Allies that fight by your side. That's normal. They deal more damage, this is new, and are able to attack with their active forms longer. Okay, this is another damage multiplier on top of this. So 400% increased damage, that's a 5 times damage multiplier. So these boots will be a must-have for this build, as can be expected. I mean, it's also doubling the numbers of Mystic Allies, and it increases how long they are able to attack in active form. We don't have details on how long that is exactly. Alright, this is something that we can't even really gauge its power until we test it out. And then Bindings of the Lesser Gods. These were bracers. Enemies hit by your Cyclone Strike take 300% to 400% increased damage. So that's a numerical buff. I think it's about a doubling of the buff this already gave. From your Mystic Ally for 5 seconds. Fire Allies gain 5 times this bonus. Split Fire Allies, rather. Okay. Because they're dealing less damage, sure. Inna's mantra played similarly to other monk sets, true, and didn't have a strong identity, true. Inna's really was just the jack of all trades of monk sets. We want to see the Mystic Ally play a more important role rather than simply providing a passive power boost. So this is rip every existing Inna build, pretty much. Goodbye Tempest Rush Inna, goodbye Wave of Light Inna. Now all those builds are rip, which, I mean, in fairness, they were variants of existing builds, but in general they tended to be the tougher variants, the tougher as in they had greater survivability. So this is interesting. We're now going from a generalist build to a hyper-specific Mystic Ally build. Well, you can definitely stay tuned for a video in the coming weeks of this new revised set in the works. Whatever numbers they have established here, I can almost guarantee that during PTR, there'll be some tweak. The question is it too strong or too weak? Alright, speaking of too strong, got some nerfs coming in. Aegis of Valor for Crusader, 2-piece set. Attacking with Fists of the Heavens empowers you, allowing Heaven's Fury to deal 125% increased damage. Wait, that's a buff. That was 100% before. For 5 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. Currently, it says stacks up to 3 times multiplicatively. I guess they're not making it multiplicative anymore. So they've raised... Okay, so this is if I'm understanding this correctly, this is a nerf. They've raised the base value from 100 to 125, but now it just stacks additively instead of multiplicatively. In other words, 125 plus 125 plus 125 gives you 375% increased damage. Previously, you had 100% increased damage. That doubles your damage. Then, from your doubled damage, you get another stack of doubling your damage, and then another stack of doubling your damage. That's what multiplicative is. So this is in fact a nerf, yes. Then Masquerade of the Burning Carnival 6-piece. Bone Spear cast by you and your simulacrums deals 6,000% increased damage. Whoa. Whoa, this is an immense nerf right here. It used to be 10,000, and it used to be that your simulacrums gained triple this bonus. Whoa, this is huge. The Valor Satyr is getting nerfed by maybe 7 Greater Rifts? Max? Probably less. But this, I mean, to a first approximation, we're dealing 25% of the damage we used to deal. That's like at least 10 Greater Rifts. Developers notes, Aegis of Valor and Masquerade of the Burning Carnival have been overperforming for several seasons. We're adjusting these sets in the interest of competitive variety. So, I am all in favor of nerfs. Let me lay that out. On the highest performing builds, I don't think it's feasible or reasonable to keep buffing everything for years and years, and now we have 80 billion % multipliers on everything. So I think it's definitely fair to nerf the overperforming builds and buff the underperforming builds. How severe of a nerf should these builds get? Well, that's what PTR testing is for. So I'm sure during PTR we'll be able to find a happy place for all these numbers. But it'll be interesting to see when PTR launches. Is any of this absolutely broken? Is Inna's gonna be crazy OP, or is it gonna be severely underpowered? Is Aegis of Valor gonna be ripped now, or is it gonna be effectively untouched? Is Masquerade gonna be ripped now? And if it is, I'm sure we can give that feedback, and Masquerade will still end up being a viable build. To clarify, right, these builds are so powerful that they are certainly still viable. Even in the worst case scenario that I've presented, these builds will still be viable and still probably be at least A tier. At least A tier. The question really is just, are they gonna stay S tier? Then how to participate, PTR character copy. They didn't give us, oh, we don't know what the ethereal items are gonna be. Oh man, okay. I guess we'll have to figure out next week. Alright, I want to see what those ethereals are going to be. I want to see if they have the lightsaber. Okay, so, some quick thoughts here. I'm in favor of the nerf to Valor and Carnival. How severe, we can dial that in later. I'm glad that they're nerfing the OP builds. In a rework, in a way, it was kind of nice that monks had all these varieties of like, oh, I want to play Wave of Light. What variant of Wave of Light? Inna, Sun Wukong, Legacy of Dreams, that was kind of cool. But it's also nice to have reworks to sets. Inna, it's true, didn't have its own identity. In theory it did, but in practice it didn't. Now, in practice it will. And in fairness, we still have other variants too, right? It's not like we're killing all builds. Inna Uliana will be gone, but, you know, these were underperforming builds anyway. So technically, this rework does reduce variety. It technically reduces player choice, but it's giving a new, hopefully interesting, hopefully viable, hopefully powerful build for people to play. Something new to check out for monk players. And then ethereals. Alright, I love in principle the idea of a longer tail item hunt. One thing I very much dislike about D3 seasons right now is with power creep over the years, we're so strong, they've had to add new difficulties, new GR levels, we're reaching greater and greater heights, we're farming more and more blood shards, to the point that items drop constantly. It is so easy and fast to gear up. This wasn't the original design of the game. This was the consequence of power creep, unchecked power creep without appropriate nerfs. This is why I'm in favor of nerfs. I know everyone's like, oh no, don't nerf the build that I like. Guys, we're in this problem because they didn't want to nerf anymore, because people kept complaining when they nerfed things, so they didn't nerf anything for years, and then people complain, whoa, why do we have 10,000% damage multipliers? Because people lose their minds when people nerf things. If you want a game to be balanced without just one all-powerful build, you gotta be able to nerf and buff. So I don't like how fast it is to gear up in Diablo 3. I don't care at all for Paragon farming. So for me, it's really just finding the items, putting the build together. And once I've gotten my mostly completed build, I was like, okay, what's there left for me to do now? This has taken a couple days, now what? And I understand, you know, depending on who you are and how much you play, how long it takes you will vary, but most people don't need the full 3 months to put a build together, the full 3 months of a season, which is why you see seasonal population drop off massively after about 2 weeks. So giving me, I know myself personally, giving me something that's a little bit rarer to acquire, because I don't really care about hunting for primals, because it's just better versions of items that I already have. And I don't want a better version of an item I have, I want a new item. I want to hunt for something exciting, not just something with kind of higher numbers. So, ethereals being something new and more rare to chase, this is interesting to me. This is probably going to keep me playing, or hopefully, would keep me playing a season for longer. Am I going to try to collect all 21? I would like to. I know this will be something that might be outside of the reach of the average player. I don't know. It depends on how rare they make them. But definitely, if we have to make one of every character, I think that alone will put it out of the reach of the average player. But I think a good drop rarity on ethereals would be that the average player does get their ethereal by the end of the season. And with enough time to kind of enjoy it, right? You don't want to get in the last minute before season shuts down. My only concern about ethereals, and it's not really spelled out, we'll see when we actually get to testing, is... Again, when I get an ethereal, I don't want my reaction to be like it was with the very first legendary drop that I got in Diablo 3. Vanilla Diablo 3, legendaries and sets were exceptionally rare items. It was 40 hours before I got 40 hours of play, 4-0, before I got my first legendary or set item. And it was trash. I was like, oh, a beam, what is this? I grab it, like, oh, it's not for my class. It's not really good anyway. I hope that's not going to be my reaction to my first ethereal. You know, and the same with the primals, right? Like, you get that primal beam, and then it's a primal of disappointment. That's very difficult to manage, though. How do you ensure that it will be something good? So, every class gets 3 ethereals. I think that just determines the base item type. Then there's RNG layer for a legendary weapon power for the class. That certainly helps narrow it down significantly. And hopefully the base power of the ethereal will be enough that, you know, maybe I'm running a whirlwind barbarian, but then I get a drop for, let's say, a Hammer of the Ancients build, right? My ethereal is for Hammer of the Ancients, a different build. Hopefully the power of the ethereal will be great enough that I'll be like, you know what? I actually want to try out a Hammer of the Ancients build now. This weapon looks so good that even though it's not for my current barbarian build, it makes me want to play the build that I got this for. And then one random class passive skill, so that's another layer of RNG. Your perfect ethereal will have one of your top 5 passive skills, right? I think in general the passives aren't powerful. Your 5th best or worst passive isn't powerful enough that if the average player gets an ethereal with a bad class passive, that I don't think the average player would consider it garbage. The top of the top players, right? Those who, you know, way beyond my skill, the people who put in, you know, 5-8 hours a day, they'll only equip the ethereals with the best legendary power and the best class passive. But I think for the average player, class passive is just a nice little buff. It's not going to be mandatory. But my concern is going to be that, oh, if we don't get the right legendary weapon power, it's a trash ethereal. I hope that won't be the case. I hope it's more of an incentive to use the build that weapon can work with. But we'll have to wait and find out exactly what those stats are. So, that's the patch preview. Those are my thoughts, but I turn the question to you folks. What are your thoughts on all of this? Sound off in the comments. PTR starts next week. I'll be live streaming on Twitch on, I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we'll be doing some Diablo 3 throughout the PTR. So thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more Diablo content.